Okay, if you're at this point and your arm looks like this, then you are ready to start knitting. You should have 30 stitches on your left arm, and we are ready to knit this blanket. So we're going to start by knitting row 1. What you're going to do is you're going to grab the tail, your long strand of yarn in your left hand, and with your right hand, your free hand, you're going to grab the first stitch on your left hand and pull it over your hand, which is holding that yarn, and by doing that, you've created a loop, okay? So you're going to put your right hand through that loop, and now you have officially knit 1 stitch. You've passed the stitch from your left hand to your right hand. And you pick up the yarn again with your left hand, pass the stitch over, slide your right arm through, grab the yarn, and as you go, you can kind of tighten the stitches on your right hand. Just be sure, again, not to make it so tight that they won't kind of slide up your arm. If you make them too loose, then you'll have really big stitches, which isn't a problem. You'll just have a holier looking blanket, which is fine if that's what you like. If you want it to look less holy, I guess thicker, then you want your stitches to be a little bit more snug. So that is all there is to row number 1. You're just going to do that 30 times until you have moved all of the stitches on your right hand to your left hand. Sorry, until you've moved all the stitches on your left hand to your right hand. Left and right are hard. And this is a good time to find a good movie in front of the fireplace. I'll also throw out a little pro tip. As you can see, your hands are very much incapacitated from doing any other activity right now than just this. So I never try to do this while my kids are awake. It just doesn't work because you can't give them what they need with your arms tied to each other. One other thing I'll throw out there is, unless you've knit before or you're just real brave, I've knit since I was 6. I still mess this up, so I like to try to set aside an hour to 2 hour block to do this so that I can just make one whole entire blanket in one sitting, because inevitably these stitches are just so big and kind of fuzzy and can be a little bit hard to tell apart sometimes. If you slide them all off your arm and put them on a holder, it can be done. You just have to be really, really careful that you keep them all twisted the right way and put them back on your arm exactly the way they came off when you're ready to keep going. And to me, it's such a quick project that it's just easier to avoid that altogether and just finish the whole blanket in one sitting and not have to try to put it on a holder and put it back on my arm and not twist stitches around and that kind of thing. So especially if you're new to this, I would say don't even try to bother with that. But it can be done. You just have to be really careful. Okay, so like I said in the cast on video, it looks like what you've made here is a 1 foot wide blanket, which is not what we're going for. But I'll just show you. Be careful when you do this, don't pull too hard, but you can gently kind of ease those stitches, and you can see they are just, they have a lot of space in there that they're just waiting to kind of be tugged apart, and you can see I've already added a ton of width just by stretching out half the blanket. So 30 stitches should make a decently wide little throw blanket. It will not be 1 foot wide when all is said and done, and it'll continue to stretch out as you go. Okay, so that is row 1, and you can see that one row is probably close to 3 inches, so this thing knits up really, really fast. It's such a fun project and a great beginner project. Okay, so for row 2, you're going to do the same thing but in reverse. So you're going to hold the yarn in your right hand, and with your left hand, you're going to grab the stitch, pull it over, and you've created a loop. Now, when I'm moving stitches from right to left, I don't struggle at all to know which way to slide the loop onto my right hand. I do when I'm going from my right hand back to my left hand. So the way I remember it is, so you've got this loop you've made. You could put your hand in like this, or you could put your hand in like this. I always just remember that I need to slide my palms together. I'll show that again. Hold in your right hand, slide over, slide my palms together to grab that stitch. I don't know why that is hard for me, but you know, I'm good at other things. Okay, slide off, slide through. And after certainly a few blankets, even after a few rows, you will get to where this goes a lot faster and you can easily kind of multitask. You can watch TV while you're doing this. You don't have to you don't have to focus quite so hard once you've gotten the hang of it. So it's a great project because I don't like just sitting in front of the TV doing nothing. So this way I can still enjoy what my husband and I refer to as our corny Christmas movies. We love them. I can still kind of pay attention, and at the end of them I have an awesome blanket to show for my time. So that's, I mean, this is all there is to it. It's this in its very most basic form is what knitting is. It's just basically looping yarn through itself over and over until you've made a nice long product. It's just a lot easier. Doing it with your hands makes it seem a lot more simple than when you see people do it with little wooden sticks. But you're doing the same thing with your arms right now that people do when they're knitting with knitting needles. It's just that you're using your hands and your arms instead of having to manage small little wooden sticks. Okay, so it brings us to the end of row 2. Okay, you can see here what I usually do at the end of most rows is then go back and kind of tug it down. You could wait and just tug at the very end, but I think it makes it kind of easier to see the next row and work the next row when it's not all bunched up in there. And you can also continue to kind of stretch it out sideways, and you can see already that it's going to be well over 2 feet, maybe a little closer to 3 feet wide. I'll put the final measurements in the blog post. But that is all there is to it. So now that you're back to all the yarn on your left arm, you just repeat ad nauseum until one of two things happens. One, it reaches a length that you're happy with and you want to stop. 2, you can go until you run out of yarn almost. You need to save enough yarn to do one final row, which is the bind off row, which I'll show in a different video. And that just, in the last row, that just makes it where you end up with these stitches being kind of finished off rather than still being on your arm. Yeah, so you are ready to go. Get yourself a movie and go to town. And when you are ready to learn how to bind off, go to the next video.